Air France, the world's farthest reaching airline, flies constellations to Israel. For 20 flying hours, the powerful motors of the world's finest airliners speed you comfortably on above the weather as crews, long experienced in overwater flying, guide you to your destination. We had our first glimpse of Israel when our plane passed over Tel Aviv. Quite a remarkable city this, when you recall that about 40 years ago there were only sand dunes. Our plane landed gently on one of the long runways, reversed its propellers to break its speed, and rolled to a stop in front of the handsome terminal building of Lydda Airport. Lydda is an important center for long-distance air traffic, and it handles an average of 7,000 persons a month. The all-Constellation service of Air France is the fastest and most direct service between New York and Lydda, and our flight was one we will long remember as the perfect prelude to our trip through Israel. Half an hour after we left the airport, we were in downtown Tel Aviv. Allenby Road is the principal street of the city, with many fine business buildings, banks, and theaters. Shop windows tempted us. Israel's ceramics were particularly attractive. All about us, we saw evidence of the city's growth. Many streets were being widened to accommodate the increase in traffic. Sidewalks are made by laying blocks in the sand. Electric wires are placed underground. The old Arab slums of neighboring Jaffa, condemned for health reasons, are being torn down to make way for new business and shopping quarters. Hundreds of apartments are being constructed to house the new immigrants, the immigrants themselves doing much of the work. This stilt-type architecture, Israel's own specialty, was devised to give ventilation and to provide apartment dwellers with space for gardens. Tel Aviv has many small cooperative dwelling units also. Each has a tiny flower garden before it. Office buildings are the largest buildings of Tel Aviv. Movie houses and theaters are modern and attractive. The Habima is known as Israel's national theater. Israel is proud of her Philharmonic Orchestra, whose members once performed with the greatest orchestras of Europe. Tel Aviv is growing into a beautiful city. Rothschild Boulevard is but one of the many avenues that are planted with trees and gardens. In late afternoons and on holidays, crowds fill the cafes along Lord Samuel's Promenade. Before the cafes, the modern Israelis promenade up and down along the beach and the blue Mediterranean. Riding the waves on the Hasiki is a popular sport at the beach. Under the watchful eyes of competent lifeguards, bathers are safe, even in a heavy surf. Tel Aviv has a fine beach, and it is only just across the street from most of the hotels of the city. It's a beach you will enjoy on your Air France flight to Israel. The Weizmann's Institute at Rehovot, the world-famous institute founded by the first president of Israel. In a small Israel plane, we flew south from Tel Aviv to catch a bird's eye view of the orange groves and to see the agricultural development that has taken place in the desert. As we look down, we can see the cultivated land edged by the sand and realize what irrigation is doing to turn the wilderness into fertile fields and to make possible the building of attractive communities. The Negev, literally the arid south, comprises over 40% of Israel's territory. This is the wilderness through which Moses led the Israelites back to the promised land. Here is the future home of hundreds of thousands of Israelis. For water is being brought to the land, trees are being planted, and soon it will be producing abundant crops. Since Israel became a state, 500,000 immigrants have come to the country, and the Jewish population has doubled. Such immigration cannot be immediately housed in cities or rural areas unless there are sufficient dwellings. Until they can be absorbed into the general life of the country, the immigrants are distributed throughout Israel in camp cities and work villages. As fast as they can be built, and often by the immigrants themselves, houses and apartments are being constructed for them. The development of Israel depends largely upon irrigation and power. The Jordan Valley Authority is the master plan for the country's agricultural and industrial reconstruction. We were conscious of the progress being made in irrigation when we saw the number of pipelines being laid in various areas of the country. These huge pipes will someday carry water to every needy area of the land. To build a new nation requires hard work, and everyone works in Israel. Much of it is hand labor, but one also sees ever-increasing use of mechanical equipment. America's help is doing much to speed the development of Israel. The roads of Israel are being constantly improved. Railways are being extended. Power stations are sending out electricity to industries everywhere. Oil and gasoline are refined here. Cement plants operate 24 hours a day. Factories are being built. Diamond cutters from Holland and Belgium, with their great skill at one of the world's most exacting occupations, are producing Israel's second major export. The diamond cutters of Holland and Belgium have found welcome in their new home. And the humble shoemaker from Yemen has also found the same welcome. A new way of life is being established in Israel. This is the society of the Kibbutz, or collective settlement. The Kibbutz is mainly agricultural, though some have introduced various industrial sidelines. In these settlements, all property and earnings are owned by members of the settlement, and work is organized collectively. The Kibbutz of Givat Haim was begun in 1932, when the area was largely swamp and windrift country. Its inhabitants, mostly Jews from Austria and Czechoslovakia, are working hard and long to create their successful community. Poultry is one of the principal products of Givat Haim. Some 25,000 birds, hatched and raised on the spot, are important sources of income. Each married couple occupies a room in a dwelling on the farm. The children live separately, but visit their parents during leisure hours. The young generation is the true wealth of the new Israel. We visited Onim, where some of Israel's 15,000 wards live. Here we met some of the children rescued from Nazism and its ensuing darkness in Europe, and other children placed here by their parents for upbringing in Israel. At Onim, there are 300 children from many parts of the world. They all speak the language of their country of origin. Now they will learn Hebrew and begin a new life in happy and peaceful surroundings. The most beautiful city of Israel is Haifa, overlooking the Bay of Acre and the entire northern coast of western Galilee. Your travel agent, in conjunction with Air France, can arrange all-inclusive tours to Israel. The traveler gets more for his time when he flies Air France. Haifa, a city of nearly 150,000 people, is the major port of the country, and most of the nation's heavy industry is concentrated in the Haifa area. The city has been carefully planned. On its broad thoroughfares, traffic is no problem. Haifa Harbor, the only all-weather deep-water port in Israel, handles 70% of all her imports and exports. Israel's foreign trade is increasing at a fast rate, and the docks at Haifa are jammed with cargo. Haifa is the main port of entry for immigrants to Israel. Nearly 500,000 people of many nationalities and from all countries have passed through this port since the inception of the state, coming at last to the end of their wanderings. Haifa is laid out on the slopes of Mount Carmel. Many of the finest homes, apartments, and hotels are situated here on the top of the mountain. We visited one of Haifa's schools and watched their celebration of the first harvest. All over Israel on this day, other children were singing and dancing in commemoration of the traditional offering in the temple of the first fruits of the land. About 10 miles to the north of Haifa is Acre, for many centuries the gateway to Palestine. All conquerors and invaders have left their mark on Acre, and the old walled town bears strange relics of the past. Marco Polo first touched the shores of Palestine here. The Crusaders converted Acre into the headquarters of the Knights of St. John. Napoleon attacked, but was unable to conquer the town. Phoenicians, Romans, Turks have all had a hand in its destiny. Not all Israel's citizens are Jews, for throughout the country there are communities of Muslims and Christians. No Jews lived in Acre previous to the Israel-Arab War, but today it has a mixed population. The great mosque is an important center of the Muslim religion in Israel. When the Romans were masters in Palestine, they built aqueducts to irrigate the land and supply the cities. The one which used to carry water from the springs of Kabri to Acre still stands. We found camels much in evidence in some Arab areas of the country. One of the most popular holiday resorts of Israel is Nazareth on the coast of western Galilee. It was founded in 1934 by middle-class immigrants from Germany, and today its beautiful beach is a favorite spot for vacationists. By flying Air France, the fastest way to Israel, you will have more time there and can make extra trips as we did. From Nazareth, we went through the hills of western Galilee, where new Jewish communities are bringing back into cultivation the area that was once the Garden of Israel. Today, it is only partly cultivated by Arab peasants who till the soil and harvest the crops in primitive ways. Donkeys are the principal domestic animals among the Arabs and the Druzes. Plodding around slowly in circles, dragging a board and driver, the patient donkeys are threshing grain in the most ancient manner. Wells supply the water in this area. For hundreds of years, men have sat at this wheel, raising buckets by foot power to fill the reservoirs of the village. The highest village in Israel is Beit Jan, a Druze village in the mountains above the ancient Jewish town of Safed. Men of the village join hands and dance the dibka. The Druzes are a people of Semitic origin, claiming relationship with the people of Israel through the Kenites, the tribe from which Moses chose his wife, Zipporah. Outwardly, they appear to have the customs and habits of the Arabs, but they are not Arabs. During the war, the Druzes of Israel sided with the people of Israel against the Arab legions and defended the land and their communities with great bravery. After our visit to Beit Jan, we went on to the northern boundaries of Israel. We passed through barren hills that will someday again be covered with forest. For reforestation is one of the primary goals of the government, and many of the new immigrants are engaged in this great project. For thousands of years, olives have been an important product of Israel, and the sturdy trees have withstood the ravages of centuries. The noble olives of Safed were planted after the end of the revolt under the Romans. They have been standing nearly 2,000 years. Tobacco planted in the olive groves is proving a success and is providing Israel with another important product for export. We look down into the valley of Hula, where the tribe of Dan lived. The modern counterpart of the ancient capital of the tribe of Dan is a collective settlement. On their land, in a grove of mulberry trees, is the spring that is the main source of the River Jordan. The clear, cool water rushes down toward Hula Lake, creating marshes that are being cleared and converted to irrigation purposes. Other springs of crystal clear water flow into tributaries of the Jordan, and along their banks, wild oleanders color the landscape with their pastel blossoms. In 1934, Jewish colonists acquired the first 15,000 acres of malaria-infested swamps and began draining and clearing the land. Today, most of the valley is a rich agricultural area producing many food products. To the south lies Lake Kinneret, the famous Sea of Galilee. Kinneret has a delightful mild winter climate that attracts thousands of visitors during that season. It lies approximately 680 feet below the level of the sea. This splendid hotel on the shores of the lake at Tiberias is the stopping place for Air France travelers. We spent many restful hours during our stay on this terrace overlooking the historic lake. After thousands of years of fishing, freshwater brim and Galilee sardines are still plentiful, and Tiberias fishermen earn comfortable livelihoods netting them. At the northern end of the lake, at Capernaum, are the well-preserved ruins of an ancient synagogue built during the 2nd century. Then, Capharnaum was a town of considerable size and importance. The Jewish emblem, the Shield of David, can be discerned in the motive of the synagogue decoration. From the south end of Lake Kinneret, the River Jordan flows down to the Dead Sea, the lowest point on earth. Where the river leaves the lake, we stop to watch a group of newly arrived immigrant children from Iraq taking their first swim in their new homeland. These children were part of the tens of thousands of Jews . Two of the young immigrants were more interested in the Syrian tank that was destroyed single-handed by a beekeeper of Degania. Nearby stands a memorial commemorating the defeat of the Syrian Yarmouk army. Scars of the battle are still visible on the former police barracks. As we look over the Jordan Valley stretching to the south of Lake Kinneret, we see three of the most highly developed kibbutzim of Israel: Kinneret, Afikim, and Ashdod Yaakov. The latter has a population of over 1,200 people. Its economy is based mainly on intensive irrigated agriculture. Bananas grow well here, for the valley is 700 feet below sea level, its depth providing warmth and shelter at all times of the year. Luscious grapes ripen in early summer. Roses with stems 6 feet long are shipped by Air France planes during holiday season periods to Europe and the United States. Afikim has the largest plywood factory in Israel and is turning the giant logs imported from the tropics into many needed building products. A few miles down the valley is the hydroelectric station of Naharayim. It was occupied by the Arab Legion in the beginning of the war. No resistance was offered, for it was supposed it would continue in operation, but the workers were taken prisoners and the station has ceased to operate. On the road between Tiberias and Nazareth, we stopped at the town of Kapakana, said to be the location of the New Testament town of Cana of Galilee. 3 churches commemorate the wedding that was held at Cana in Galilee. Rising nearby on the slopes of the hills through which we pass to go to Jerusalem is Nazareth, one of Israel's all-Arab communities. Before us is St. Joseph's Church, built on the site of Joseph's carpenter shop. The Roman Catholic Church of the Annunciation. For 2,000 years, Mary's well has supplied drinking water for Nazareth. Continuing on our way to Jerusalem, we cross the valley of Jezreel, biblical Esraeldon. Here were begun the earliest Jewish settlements of modern Israel, and the region that was once a swamp is now the richest sheep and cattle raising country. As we motored up to Jerusalem, we saw the remains of trucks and armored cars of Jewish convoys that had fought their way to relieve the beleaguered city. These would be left as memorials to the courageous. We look now upon the walls of Old Jerusalem on Mount Zion. Zion symbolizes the heart of Judaism, for it was here that King David decided to build a city and temple to God. Pilgrims from all over the world come to this mountain to do homage to the memory of King David. From the Domitian Tower atop the mountain, we look upon the site of the walls bounding the area of King Solomon's temple. Before us are the ruins of the ancient Jewish quarter of the old city, and the heaps of rubble which were the synagogues demolished by the occupying Arab forces. The crenellated walls represent the approximate division of Jerusalem between the forces of Abdullah and Israel at the conclusion of the armistice. Until this war, a Jewish community had always existed within the walls, comprised of descendants of families who had managed to survive the centuries of Palestine's stormy history. Jerusalem truly merits being called the Holy City, for great shrines of three religions are all within a few hundred yards of each other. This dome covers the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Pilgrims look over the city from the roof above King David's tomb. The Dome of the Rock, the mosque built upon the traditional site of Solomon's temple, the Mount of Olives, and the Garden of Gethsemane. 5 miles away, we see among the hills the little town of Bethlehem. Jerusalem outside the walls sprang from the Jewish nostalgia for the eternal city. Jewish connections with the city, in both secular and religious fields, has persevered throughout the centuries. Time after time, the Jews returned to rebuild the city of the temple. The last return has seen the foundations laid for a city greater than ever before. Today, there are more than 115,000 Jews living in this new city that has grown beyond the walls. Jerusalem is a fast-moving modern city. Its population pursues all types of industries. It is the seat of the capital of Israel, as well as the headquarters of the Zionist organization. Under the government's planning scheme, it is expected to increase the population to 250,000 people. The plan for the New Jerusalem provides for a great deal of reconstruction and development of the whole area with various industrial suburban towns. The hills around Jerusalem, until recently, were barren and rocky. Today, they are becoming beautiful residential areas with attractive modern homes and apartments. When you travel by Air France, you will have extra days for sightseeing in Jerusalem. Your home during your stay will be the superb King David Hotel. You will visit Bezalel Museum, named after the biblical craftsman who built the tabernacle. The candelabrum which tops the building is a replica of the original which stood in the first temple. Our eyes turn now to the noble Yeshurun synagogue at the close of the Sabbath service. Rabbi Herzog, the spiritual leader and chief rabbi of Israel. Theodor Herzl, the man who conceived the vision of the state, is buried on this hill overlooking Jerusalem. If you will it, it is not a dream. And the vision that was not a dream but the will of a determined people has become a reality, the state of Israel. Our trip to Israel has been all too short, but our plane is waiting and we must return to our homes across the sea. Air France, in presenting to you this brief picture story, hopes that it has brought to you a preview of a trip to the new nation. Pictures at best can give you only an idea of what is in store for you when you make the flight yourself. Your travel agent can arrange every detail of your journey. Air France offers you all consolation service between America and Israel, flying comfortably and smoothly above the weather, the fastest and most direct service to the new nation, an Air France flight to Israel. Shalom.